In today's video, I'll share my system for how I manage my Florida beach house as an Airbnb remotely from all the way out here in Minnesota. We'll touch on everything from guest communications to the logistics and operations of restocking and maintenance, pricing, legal stuff, administrative stuff, all the things. At the end of the video, I'll talk about a few things that I still like to do in person and a few reasons why managing an Airbnb remotely might not be for everyone. Let's get started with an overview. My system involves a few key pieces of software, a dashboard that I built using ClickUp, and a few key contacts on my team. Over time, I've also added a few smart home items that have really helped me expand what I can control from afar. Starting on the software front, the most used app in this whole process is my property management software and my Wi-Fi door app from Yale. Between these two apps, they take care of all of my check-in, check-out process, the guest communication, cleaner communications, and making sure my calendars are synced and I don't get double booked. Whenever I get a new booking, whether it's on Airbnb or VRBO or even booking.com, the property management software or PMS automatically alerts my cleaner and my assistant to the dates that they need to know about. I also get to manage all of my guest communications in just one unified inbox. Most of my messages are based on standardized templates. The key pieces of information like your door code, the check-in time, the checkout time, those things are the same every time. And building it into a template helps me make sure I'm not forgetting to say really important things. And I get to save time on not repeating, rephrasing, and retyping every single time. Through the PMS, you can totally automate most of this so that you remember to send the checkout instructions and the check-in instructions and the message that comes out after the people leave and ask them for a review. That said, I still like to personalize a little. For example, if someone books our house to attend a family wedding, I'd like to congratulate them. So instead of just saying, I look forward to hosting you, I might say something more specific, like, I look forward to hosting you for this really special event. Alternatively, we also sometimes get folks who are going to the Mayo Clinic in Florida, and they're staying for an extended time, either for recovery or if they have a sick family member and they're there for a long time to see that family member. It's more of a grave situation, and so I would like to adjust my tone a little bit so that I don't sound too chipper. To make sure my short-term rental guests have access to the house at the right time, I use a Wi-Fi connected keypad and I can set the door codes just right here from my phone. The one we're using is from Yale and we've used it since the beginning and have had no issues so far. I love how you can set the codes for specific times to match their check-in and checkout times. And I also really like having specific codes for my cleaner, for my assistant, and you can see from the log which code is being used, so who's coming and going and what times they were there if the door is locked from afar. It's a great thing for a security measure too. Another software that I rely on to take pricing off my day-to-day operational plate is dynamic pricing. I definitely recommend this if you're self-managing, whether you have a local property or if it's something remote and far away. It helps you automatically respond to the supply and demand in the market. For example, if there are special events that just got announced in your area, the prices would probably go up because demand is higher. Conversely, if a bunch of new competitors just came onto the market and they're really nice listings, then the supply has gone up and you might need to adjust your prices accordingly. Dynamic pricing software monitors all of this for you, and it can adjust prices accordingly on your behalf. I currently have an AirDNA subscription, and it's fantastic. It's just so intuitive and so user-friendly. And yet, you could dive more into the granular details and look at listing level, all of the historical trends for each particular listing, and really study your competition if that's what you want to do. I've also had a good experience with Price Labs before, and then there are so many other ones that I haven't even used. I've heard of Beyond Pricing, and I think Logify itself, if you use them as your PMS, they have free dynamic pricing that comes with it. Lots of options. Really, the only ones I don't recommend are the native ones on VRBO and on Airbnb. I think they call it smart pricing. I have personally found that VRBO suggestions are always way too high, and Airbnb's pricing suggestions are really low. Not only am I skeptical how they came up with such different numbers, is there something wrong with their data set? Is there something inaccurate? I also just don't like having discrepant pricing. Like, most travelers know we are listed on multiple platforms. So if the VRBO listing was more expensive, they could really just look for the same house on Airbnb. So I prefer to just use dynamic pricing and have that be consistent and automatically responding to market supply and demand. The third piece of managing my short-term rental business remotely is a property management dashboard. Now, the software I've mentioned thus far, like dynamic pricing and guest messaging, PMS, they're really great at what they do, but they're really niche. And there's just so much more that you need to manage to run a smooth short-term rental business. You need a systematic and comprehensive place to keep track of all of your admin, your operations, and even ideas. That's why I'm so excited that ClickUp is sponsoring today's video. They're a project management tool that perfectly fits my operational dashboard. I rely on this dashboard to basically keep track of everything in my business that can't be automated by those other softwares. This includes maintenance, like changing the furnace filters every so often, and also having a place to document exactly what size those darn filters are. It's just not my strong suit. I have all of my maintenance tasks built in there, and I can easily see when they were last done and have a due date set for when I need to do them next. I can use the filtering functions to get timely reminders. Really, there is just so much more I can do with my brain space than trying to remember when was the last time our cleaners did a deep clean. My dashboard also includes some inventory information, like if I have 10 different kinds of light fixtures around the house and some of them use like E11 and B2, whatever the bulb sizes are. It is helpful to know which bulb matches with what light fixture and whether we have them on hand. Sure, I could ask a handyman to come all the way out to my house and take a look at the light fixture, figure out which bulb he needs, and look around in my pantry to see if he can find it, and if not, go to the store and buy it and come back to change one freaking light bulb. Or I can just have all that information available, and this becomes a really tiny 5-minute task that can be tacked on to whenever he visits my house next for bigger projects. Much more efficient and much less expensive. Lastly, I also keep track of my administrative tasks here, like monthly paying our local tourist tax, or annually renewing my business license with the state of Florida or the county or the city, making sure I do my year-end tax planning, having the 1065 returns filled out, and the K1 sent to the partners. There are so many little things that I need to do every single year and every quarter at different frequencies. I can get reminders on tasks that are coming up due, and honestly, it gives me so much peace of mind to know that I've thought about all these things before and I've offloaded them somewhere on my dashboard, and nothing will be missed because I will be reminded when I need to actually do something. If you're interested in building your own dashboard kind of like this, use my link, tryclickup.co/lydiapatelll, and the code lydiapatelll to get started for free. And if you end up loving it and want to upgrade, my code gets you 20% off. I love that ClickUp has the clean look of Trello and Asana, but it has also the more customizable features just like Notion. Highly recommend trying them out for yourself. Also, ClickUp is so much easier to share with you guys as a template. I will also include a sign up link below for access to my dashboard if you would just like a copy of this as your template. I've been incorporating all of your feedback in the last few months. Thank you to everyone who has left me a comment using the link below. And I'm just incorporating a few more details and copying over my tricky answer templates, like how to respond to someone asking for a discount, what do I say when someone wants an early check-in, a late checkout, how to address complaints, that sort of thing, before I'm ready to fully release it to the world. By signing up, you'll be the first to know when it is ready to download. The fourth piece is the people. Broadly, I think of the team as the cleaner, the handyman, landscaper, pest people, specialty services like plumbing, appliances, gas, pool cleaner if you have a pool, and then lastly, a local miscellaneous assistant. Our cleaner we found through a recommendation. You can also use platforms like Turno. A lot of my communications with the cleaner is automated through the PMS. They get information on the check-in, check-out dates. On top of that though, you would still need a process and expectation for your cleaners to let you know when things are running low and need restocking. They're also the first people to see if damages occur, so they are the ones that need to be sending you any pictures of damage as proof if you were going to submit for reimbursement. Even if you're not submitting for reimbursement, you need to know so that you can repair the thing or replace the thing. For all of these reasons, I like to use the same cleaner because they're easily spotting things that are missing or new stains or new damages that weren't there before. You'll need some handyman contacts. When I first started, I heard from watching so many different videos that, oh yeah, you're gonna need a handyman on speed dial. And I remember thinking, what are all these things that break? We own our primary home and we rarely have a handyman over. But turns out that advice was correct. For example, our door was just more and more chipped, and there were stains from people just kind of carelessly rolling their bags through, and people are just less gentle with your things than they would be at the things at their own house. Anyway, we had to repaint the whole front door because the wear and tear was building up and it was becoming more and more obvious. Sometimes the ceiling fan remotes are missing and you need a handyman to come over, get those new remotes synced with each ceiling fan, and put them on the wall in a little holder so that people aren't like taking them and putting them wherever and they go missing. Just stuff. All sorts of things that aren't necessarily malicious. No one's like, knock on wood, been trying to damage our house on purpose, but things just happen. People are here on vacation and they're just a little more carefree. But for that reason, you'll need a few contacts because sometimes people are busy, they might have other jobs, they might be out of town. A lot of them I met initially on TaskRabbit and really enjoyed working with them, so we exchange our contact information and continue working together. Just like the cleaners, I love using the same people over and over again because they know the house and I know I can trust them. Landscaping, pest control, and specialty services, those are pretty self-explanatory. For the most part, these are kind of subscription model type things and are on autopilot, barring major issues. And then lastly, we have a local assistant. I have this as a completely separate person that I can contact, and they know the house well, they're homeowners themselves. And this is gonna sound silly, but the main requirement I was looking for is a common sense grown-up that is basically acing adulting. Someone that has experience caring for their own house and is kind of handy, knows a little bit of everything, and has common sense. Like one time our air conditioner wasn't working and we couldn't figure out why because we had just gotten it serviced. It was a weekend, so we weren't really gonna be able to get someone out 9 p.m. on a Saturday. So we talked to our lovely assistant and he was like, oh yeah, let me swing by and bring my capacitor generator. I forgot what he brought, but he brought a thing that he just has a spare of because he's a properly grown adult who knows houses and is prepared for things like this. He was able to quickly patch a fix together for the night, and then later he went and swapped it out for the right size. Honestly, I don't know any of this stuff. The point of the story is it's just really nice to have this extra person that you can trust in case you need them. We've also had him help us return a watch to a guest because they had left it and they wanted to pay for shipping to get it back. He's helped us do a quick walkthrough after the recent storms to make sure everything looks fine. We pay him every week just to be around and be kind of on call and available, and then obviously additionally for the time that he does spend at our house. Number 5, let's talk about smart home integrations. Everything else up to this point are essential in my opinion. Smart home devices are not an absolute requirement, but they really help make your life easier as a short-term rental host. I'll share what we use, how they help, and you can decide whether this is something you want to pursue. We have a minute monitor, which is really helpful for noise monitoring, smoke detection. It doesn't record any audio, so it's obviously still compliant with all the Airbnb rules about privacy. We've never, again, knock on wood, have to break up a party and act on the noise monitor, but having it there, I think, is a really big deterrent for people who are looking to be loud and looking to party. And in case I ever have to encounter an actual party and be messaging the guests and contacting authorities and whatnot, I'll have the receipts of exactly how many decibels of noise we're talking about. We have a few Ring cameras, and those are really helpful for security reasons. And also just logistically, sometimes if I can see that the guests are leaving early, I can let the cleaners know so that they have a little bit more flexible of a schedule and start earlier. They're great for letting in deliveries or repair people. It's nice to be able to see if the bins have been picked up for the day, if people are parking properly and not poking out in the driveway. I also like to know that the guests have actually arrived and checked in properly and seems to be accessing the house fine before I send them that message of, hey, hope you guys are all settled in, because I have a thing against poorly timed automated messages, I think. They're all relatively small things, but they're nice. For the parking issue, I could proactively reach out to the guest versus wait till someone gets a ticket or someone else complains. Just a quick note, if you are using a camera like the Ring cameras, make sure you're not recording anything that's inside the house. Make sure you understand the rules and disclose any cameras that you have. For a smart thermostat, we have the Ecobee system, and I can pull it up right here on my phone. Occasionally, people set crazy temperatures like 65 degrees for a whole week, and it's helpful to be able to reset that as soon as they leave. The other time when the AC wasn't working, the one I mentioned when our assistant came over, even though we couldn't be obviously fixing it from afar, we could at least see how bad it was and and follow along on the progress. It gave us a little bit of a sense of control, and also it's gratifying to see those temperatures eventually gradually come down. For a smart irrigation system, we are using Ratio. It's connected to Wi-Fi and it can sense the weather, so it can decide not to water on the days when it is already raining. You can adjust the watering schedule on an app remotely, and you can see if there were issues like the watering cycle didn't run for a certain day, for example. It's really just another layer of control, and I never would have thought that this mattered how often grass was being watered. But guess what? Our fuse blew on the irrigation engine device thing that is outside. It didn't water anything for weeks. We just didn't know about it the whole time until the grass kind of got brown and started dying. We're like, whoa, what is happening here? The Ratio device isn't that expensive and it's not really hard to install, so why not give yourself access to see what's going on? This overall system has been refined over the past couple of years, and I think right now is working pretty well. That said, I have a couple of things I still like to do in person. One is testing the space out as a guest. I think in the beginning, you just don't know what you don't know, especially if it's a new house or if you're new to hosting. I gave an example in a previous video. There was this really cute but noisy wind chime that was hanging outside under the covered patio. I wouldn't have known how loud and annoying it is unless I stayed there and heard the noises as I was trying to sleep, or unless a guest complained, but the goal is to like not get to that point, right? Maybe the doors are a little bit squeaky, but no one's gonna complain about that unless they're like massively a Karen. Maybe after designing your space, you have like cluttered too much decor in a certain place, maybe by the front door, and people can't put their shoes anywhere. They're all kind of small experiential things that can add up. And I know you could build most of this eventually into a checklist and delegate someone to do a walkthrough like you would. But like I said, when you are new, it's just really hard to have that comprehensive checklist in the beginning because you didn't know what to expect. I think if you really wanted to skip this as a personal in-person step, you could ask another host in the area to help you do the walkthrough so that they would have kind of the Airbnb host eyeballs and spot those things for you, but it has to be someone that you trust. Obviously, they are your competition, so like I think it would be really hard to find someone like that unless you already knew them in person and they're a friend of yours. The other thing that I like to do in person, and this one is absolutely not outsourceable, is building a relationship with your neighbors. I've spoken about this before many times. I think it's important in the sense that it helps you have smoother operations. They will point out the things that aren't going well from their eyes. And then secondly, it also helps address any complaints before they come up. It helps you maintain good terms, and I don't know, it's also just kind of fun to meet people. All right, finally, let's end with what are the downsides of self-managing a short-term rental remotely and who should not be doing it. The most obvious downside is time and effort. If after hearing me describe how I manage this remotely, and you're like, nah, that's not for me, that's too much work, it's just too much hassle, that's totally cool. You can find property managers and co-hosts to help you do that so that you can be completely hands-off if you still want to get in on the short-term rental thing, but not get your hands dirty and get in there and do a lot of the work yourself. Most of these services charge a percentage of your revenue, like before expenses, so it can get a little expensive depending on the area. Just budget this in as you're running your numbers. Also, because I know a lot of you watching are other professionals that have like a relatively high income job, for tax purposes, if you have a property manager or co-host, this may fall under passive activity rules. If you have very limited hours spent on managing the property, or if someone else is spending more time than you are. There are 7 different criteria for what counts as material participation, aka what IRS sees as not falling under passive activity. Just something to look into if you've heard about using this to offset your W-2 income, that sort of thing. The other main reason to not self-manage something remotely is kind of the opposite reason, and that is if you want a lot of control and you don't accept even a small margin of error on anything as a perfectionist. If that's you, I totally get it. When we had our tiny house just in our backyard, I would head over there constantly. After every flip, I would be over there with my lint roller and making sure any fuzz, any lint, any hair, all of that is gone. And I would like study every surface from multiple angles, just like making sure where the light hits and I'm not missing something. Did I get 5 stars on being squeaky clean on all the reviews? Yeah, of course. But financially, did it matter? Probably not. For some of us, it can be scary to put a thing out there in the world if you can't make it just right. With the beach house, we just had to learn to relinquish some of that control. Our cleaners are amazing, and they are now the ones like chopping the pillows and running over there with a lint roller, making sure everything looks good. That part to me is non-negotiable, but at least it's still easy to outsource. Some of the finer details, like are the spatulas in this drawer versus that one? Will the beach wagon be nicely collapsed and neatly put back on the shelf every time after use? Will I get a full inventory of exactly how many Jenga pieces went missing each time? No, I can't obsess over those things anymore. And you would have to be okay with that if you are trying to manage remotely and literally can't get your hands on those things. By this point in the video, I hope you've gotten enough information to A, decide if you want to manage your Airbnb remotely, and B, have a practical playbook of exactly how you can do that. Thanks again, ClickUp, for sponsoring this video. I will link them and any of the items that I mentioned in the video in the description below. Feel free to leave me any questions you have in the comments, and I hope you're having a good day. I'll see you next time. Bye!